Hello and welcome to the Album Man, and today it's that time of the year. It is time for for the top 10 worst rock albums that I have listened to in 2013, and there are some pretty appalling albums on this list. 2013 has yielded such an array of fantastic releases. It's also yielded some huge disappointments, some commercial cash-ins, and just some flat-out shit. So we're going to take a look at them, and as usual with these lists, they do go number 10, the least worst of the worst. Number 1 is the worst album of the year. So last year's winner, quote-unquote, even though it was top 10 disappointing albums of the year last year, but this year had some such bad albums I decided to change it to just worst. And last year it had to be Muse's The Second Law, which was a pretty atrocious album, honestly. It's a big disappointment for me, as I'm quite a big Muse fan. And also worst rock album of the year, I think that particularly also went to Tenacious D's Rise of the Phoenix. I just hate that band in every way. But this year, let's look at 10 new albums and see why they're so bad. At number 10, we have People, Hell and Angels by Jimi Hendrix. Now, you may not have been expecting this, a Jimi Hendrix album at number 10, but why? What's so bad? Are you hating on Hendrix? Do you not like Hendrix? No, of course. I love Hendrix. So, I don't need to say how great Hendrix as a guitarist and a songwriter was. But what I don't like, and what I have pretty much a zero tolerance for, is commercial cash-ins. This was just a cash-in on the Hendrix name. This is the weakest of his posthumous albums because, well, it was billed as a new album featuring new songs. That's what it said on the label, featuring new Jimi Hendrix songs. Now, they're technically, you can see the loophole to get around false advertising, they're technically new, as in these particular takes haven't been released, but really, if you look beneath the surface, you see that, well, these are just some pretty bad alternate takes of songs that have already been released, and, demos. So these are alternate takes of demos which have already been re-released. There was even a couple from Valleys of Neptune, I think the predecessor posthumous album to this. There's a couple of songs that it was a mess. It was a commercial mess. I can understand why some people may express an interest in at least maybe hearing it, but just to hear, some of the ways in which Hendrix worked on the songs, maybe as a guitar player. But if you're going to hear this, honestly, I don't support piracy, but pirate this. This does not deserve a cent, a penny, whatever currency your money is. It doesn't deserve any of it. Number 9. Hail to the King by Avenged Sevenfold. Oh yes, this is going to ruffle up a few feathers, I'm sure. Because this album, I've seen this on a few best of lists. Not quite sure why. To me, this was very mediocre. I think it was slightly worse than Nightmare. Nightmare wasn't. It was okay. This was just. It was such an average album. There was nothing just appalling about it. It's hard to absolutely loathe, but it was so mediocre. It was just so banal, so dull, boring. Any bloody synonym of dull, boring, banal, then that describes this album. Loads of riffs stolen. I mean, you had bits stolen from Guns N' Roses' Back Off Bitch, from Use Your Illusions. You had Metallica's Sad But True, a very uncanny riff to that, and quite a few other examples. Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head because it was released back in August, but they're the particular notable ones, and the songs which were at least a tiny bit original, I just felt they were quite uninspired. They really, I just almost find them the Nickelback of metal, honestly. Even though they have a lot more respect in the metal community than Nickelback, I honestly not quite sure why. But, as usual, it's my opinion, but I thought Hail to the King, not great. Number 8. Now, this was an album I didn't review, and let's say we're using the word rock loosely on this one, but it's still someone who was in a very popular hard rock band. This is Scott Stapp's solo album, Proof of Life. So, this album Now, I wasn't exactly looking forward to this. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be great. I do like Creed. I like the earlier stuff. I love Weathered. I think Weathered is a fantastic album. Not a huge fan of Human Clay or My Own Prison, but, no, sorry, not My Own Prison. I like My Own Prison. I think it's Full Circle. I'm not as keen on. But, you know, I think Creed are a good and quite underrated band. I think they get a lot of unnecessary slack. I think they just have some, very catchy songs, really. Not saying they're the most innovative or greatest band, but I think they're quite catchy. So I decided I'd give Scott Stapp's solo album a listen. And what I found instead was it may as well be called Scott Stapp Sings the Bible, because it is so preachy. I understand it's a Christian rock. I know that Scott Stapp's a Christian. It doesn't mean you need to shove it down my ears, okay, like two bloody nails going through them. Okay, I get the gist. You're a Christian. I can deal with that. That's okay. It doesn't mean I want it shoved down my ears, okay. It just gets the Christian imagery, the symbolism, the motifs. It gets a bit repetitive. It comes off. It's almost like a Jehovah's Witness, bloody knocking at your ears. He really is trying to show you the path to salvation, which I'm not interested in. Honestly, it's like you close the door on a Jehovah's Witness as you do to Scott Stapp. You press pause, and you walk away. The songs themselves, musically, there's nothing very interesting about them. They sound like they've been performed by some studio hands who really don't give a shit. They just want the money, which, understandable, I suppose. And Scott Stapp, well, you can see he tries at the vocals. They're not that catchy. I mean, for this type of catchy pop rock, the main thing it needs to be is catchy. And if you fail to be catchy, then no one really gives a damn, honestly. I'm sorry, but in that type of genre, it's one of the main, things that makes it at least bearable. Number 7, this was a surprise. I did not expect this album to be on here, really. Eric Clapton's Old Sock. I'm sorry to have to put an Eric Clapton album on here. I really, truly am. Eric Clapton, phenomenally talented guitarist. I still maintain he's a bit overrated. I don't think he's quite as good as everyone says he is. I think there's better blues guitarists out there, and I think even like on an album, the collaboration album we did with B.B. King, Rising of the King, I think B.B. King comes away from the album looking to be a far stronger performer. But certainly Eric Clapton has released some damn great stuff. This is not one of them. This is a covers album with 2 original songs, but mainly covers, and it just feels like he didn't try. I mean, the album cover sums it up. It's a picture he took from his iPhone while on holiday, and it just looks like a very the album cover makes it look like a very soft, very safe album, and that's what it is. It's very soft, very safe. There isn't any time where you can say, oh, what a great solo that was. I don't care the rest of the songs that weren't that good. What a solo. No, there isn't. There's no soaring solo. There's just bits of very, very gentle melodic playing, a bit of piano here, and even the special guests can't help. Even Steve Winwood can't. Even the fact that he does a cover of Still Got the Blues by Guy Moore, one of my favourite blues songs of all time. It's a pretty damn hard song to mess up, just because. I respect the way he tried to play it on the piano, the classic guitar riff, but really, he sucks the life out of all the songs he covers. Absolutely sucks the life out of them. Takes everything that made them so engaging and just throws it away. It feels so dialed in, so unnecessary. Just why, Clapton? Either do something to the best of your ability or don't do it at all. And another band who could learn from that at number 6. Status Quo's Bullet Quo. Again, I'm sorry to be putting Status Quo in here. I think Status Quo are great bands. I can understand that, certainly a lot of people of my generation, they don't like them that much. I mean, they're, 70s sort of soft rock, really, and it's very poppy, very commercial, but I have a fondness for it. I think they just have some tight songwriting, really, and I can definitely always appreciate a catchy song, and I think they're pretty talented musicians. Though here, Francis Rossi and Rick Parfitt deliver a soundtrack for their film Bullet Quo, and let's not even get started on that film. Let's not even go down that road as one of the worst films of the year. Oh, god damn. And this album, the thing is, they take some, it's a double album. One featuring some new songs, the second disc featuring some old songs sort of Pacificed up. Which, a bit of an odd way for it, but yeah, they, like the classic song Caroline, which you Crow fans will know, they add like a Pacific sort of almost like Hawaiian type edge to it, and it's like, no, please let this not be real, but it is. And then the other songs, on like the newer songs, oh my god, they have such this sort of, this Pacific flair, which doesn't work at all. It feels just like the most stereotypical, like if you imagine, you know, the type of music they play on a Hawaiian beach or Pacific Island beach, then that's what Status Quo do here, and it's so generic, it's so, the songwriting just isn't very good, honestly. It's very lackluster. I don't want to talk about this too not long, honestly, it's so disappointing. Number 5, another album I didn't review, and a lot of people did, and a lot of people called this album out for being crap. This was Device's self-titled album, Device. And I may say, well, Album Man, we know you don't like David Godin, a whole Draymond. We know you don't like Disturbed. Why did you even bother listening to this? What was the point? Did you really think you were going to like this? I wasn't sure. I thought I'd give it a go, simply because I just like hearing albums that, you know, people talk about. You know, when I watch a few of the reviewers that I follow talk about a particular album, I want to check it out. I want to give it a go. So I did. And also had Lizzie Hales on it, and Lizzie Hale, usually, she's pretty damn good on whatever she does. Though on here, she was, David Godin, Old Draymond managed to make Lizzie Hale sound like shit. And that's something hard to do, because she's a very talented and powerful vocalist. This album, tell me something good about it, honestly. I mean, I've always said that Disturbed are, you know, paint-by-numbers rock. This is just, it's like buying a paint-by-numbers and it's already painted. That doesn't even make any bloody sense. But still, it's so dull. Honestly, the only thing I could say, it's almost like sort of Nickelback's Here and Now, or Dark Horse, the particularly generic, uninspired albums of theirs. I just fail to notice even one tiny glimpse of a catchy chorus, or a good solo, or a nice beat, or a great vocal, because there is none. It's very simple, it's not great, but it's still better than this next infuriating release. Number 4, Life, Love and Hope by Boston. Now, I did have some hope, and I hoped I would love it. But in fact, I didn't love it at all. No, I hated it. In fact, it was my most recent album review. I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 10. That's pretty goddamn low, okay? Pretty goddamn low. Where to start with this album? The drum beat, okay? Oh my god, you know, like in the 80s, those sort of old, sort of big, sort of synthy, electronic-y, reverbed drums. Yeah, we all loved them, didn't we? No. So what does Tom show? He's like, oh yeah, let's bring that back, that's a great idea. Then he records everything on analog, and I was like, okay, that kind of can work. Other bands have experimented, it could be okay. Instead, the production, I mean, considering Boston's first time was one of the best production jobs I've ever had, still holds up to this day as one of the best produced albums of all time. And instead here, there's bits of tape hiss, the mix doesn't sound quite right at times, and it's like, am I listening to Boston here? And it sounds like a really streamlined version. I used an analogy in my review that it's like their ship, the famous Boston ship on the cover, it's smashed to the ground, okay? The ship has exploded, there's mangled body parts just everywhere, and you can still see, like, you know, bits of the wreckage that look like the Boston ship. You can still see the faint semblance of Boston, but it's still amongst the wreckage, and it's nothing like its former glory. Combined with the cash-ins, the songs, there's a remaster, You Gave Up on Love, I think it is, that was on Corporate America, and it's just a remaster, not even a remix. I mean, remix is unacceptable enough, but a remaster? Why? Why would you just, if you want to remaster an album, then remaster it, don't put it on another new album. And then the songs that weren't bloody rehashed like shit, they were just shit. They had just barely any good features about it. This album was such a giant disappointment. Okay, I mean, come on, Boston, you should not be below David Godina Hall Draymond, but oh, you sink to new lows in this, Tom Schultz, and I am not pleased. Number 3. Oh, this album was torn apart by everyone at the beginning of the year. It was almost like a good little bandwagon, but I don't like to, jump on bandwagons. This one was deserved, honestly. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Temper Temper by Bullet for My Valentine. Now, I'm not a big Bullet for My Valentine fan. They're not my type of stuff. But I do own the album, what is it? The Poison? I think. Poison. Yeah. The Poison. And it's so-so. It has a couple of okay songs. Tears Don't Fall. That's a very good song. This album... I'm running out of superlatives to describe just how bad and awful these albums are, because, oh wow, Bullet for My Valentine, I think, I don't even know how low I gave this. This album sunk to just new depths. I honestly didn't think anything could beat this, but clearly 2 things have, and I'm sure you know about it, so I won't dwell on this album for too long. But combined with a Tears Don't Fall Part 2, which no one needed, which is far worse, with just some of the most cliched, generic, sort of hard rock, metal-esque music I've heard in a long time. And really just no life, no soul, one of the most cold, callous releases of the year, though not the most. Number 2. What About Now by Bon Jovi? Now you may say, is this really worse than Temper Temper by, Bullet? Mainly why this is above Bullet is because, Bon Jovi are a name to me that have, credibility. As in, Bon Jovi, they used to be good. I mean, seriously good. I mean, we're talking amazing. Slippery When Wet. What an album that is. I mean, that is sort of commercial at its finest. Absolute finest, so catchy, huge choruses, big guitar solos, giant sing-along choruses. It's just so much fun Bon Jovi stuff, it really is. New Jersey as well, Keep the Faith, just a fantastic trilogy of albums. So I haven't listened to Bon Jovi since really the Keep the Faith album, but I thought I'd give What About Now a go. And I went in with an open mind, hoping that it'd be good, honestly. I thought, even if it's a bit iterative and in the same phase as it would probably be a bit of fun. Instead, I found, it's about as fun as having a thumb screw on your finger, and on your thumb even, and it being crushed and, blood just pouring out. It's on par with that, if not a bit worse, honestly. It's not a fun experience, What About Now, and it's not something I'd recommend to anyone. Even a deaf person would find this album just uncomfortable to listen to. The thing about this is how to describe this. Okay, it's basically a pop album. Just let's not add any frills to this. This is basically a pop album from Bon Jovi. Now, Bon Jovi have always veered towards that poppier side of rock, and that's okay. That can be good, but this is just pop. I mean, it even has some country. There's a song on here, I can't remember the name, it was a while ago it came out, that it almost sounds like a bloody Taylor Swift song, and that's not an exaggeration or joke as well. It really does. It's just as whiny, just as bullshittingly tedious. And yeah, this is basically, you can understand why Richie Sambora left the band pretty much. I mean, he hasn't really left, but he's sort of left after this album. I mean, his contribution is virtually unnoticeable. You wouldn't know he was on this album. He could have died halfway through the recording, in fact, at the beginning of the recording, and you wouldn't notice any difference. His input is so minute, I mean, it makes a proton look bloody giant. And that's a shame, because Richie Sambora is really what elevates John Bon Jovi's pop into some great, rock. Here, instead, we get something so bad. But still, not the worst. Drum roll, please. At number 1. I'm sure a lot of you, if you followed my channel whatsoever, you'll know what this album is. You'll be thinking, I bet you it's this. And you know what? It is. It is Jeff Tate or Queensryche's Frequency Unknown. The #1 worst album of 2013 without a shadow of a doubt, okay? Compared to this, Temper is bloody Dark Side of the Moon. And I wish I was exaggerating that much, but I'm not. Frequency Unknown, not only was it... The thing is, let's start with the expectations. Dedicated to Chaos, released in 2011, was probably Queensryche's worst album. I'd say it was. In fact, it's one of my least favourite rock albums of all time. Then, of course, Queensryche split into two. And we're not going to go into the detail, you know. How I might do a video chronicling the whole thing at a later date, but after the court case. But at the moment, you know, there's two Queensryches, both under the same name of Queensryche. One of them has all the sort of, you know, members who are on the 2011 Dedicated to Chaos album, except for Jeff Tate. Instead of Jeff Tate on vocals, they have the singer Todd Latour. And then you have the other Queensryche, also known as Jeff's Reich, which basically is Jeff Tate and a bunch of who the hell, you know, nobody musicians. And they both released an album this year, Queensryche's self-titled album with Todd Latour, or, you know, Todd's Reich, which was really a very strong album. And then you had Frequency Unknown, which was not. It's number one worst album of the year. Of course, it's not a bloody strong album. So why is it number one? Even if I may not have expected that much from it. Just because, you know, this is the same person who sung on Empire and Operation Mindcrime and Promised Land. I mean, on Empire, Jet City Woman, in my opinion, is one of the greatest metal songs of all time. I mean, they had interesting concept albums of Operation Mindcrime and just some fantastically unique progressive metal. And to see the front man come to this, sink to these lows, it really is sad, this album, if anything. I think it's sad, especially as he's in denial. His whole war against the haters, where he challenged people to send in rant videos, it was quite pathetic, really. It showed that he's not willing to listen to the criticism. He simply dismisses everyone who dislikes this album as a hater and an internet troll, wanting to be anonymous and all that crap. Well, no, I'm here to tell you, Jeff Tate, that you've just released a shit album and you should bloody well fucking accept it. Simple as. This type of album, it's just unacceptably bad. Yes, there's always going to be those people who are hanging on to the end of Jeff Tate's dick who are going to be sucking this album up. But for me, I'm not. It is so bland. It is so repetitive. It is so boring, so banal, so dull. It is so commercial, so poppy, so uninspired, so lackluster, so mediocre. And, you know, I could throw out many other words. But the main thing is, it's just not up to par. It's worse than Dedicated to Chaos. I'm saying that now. It is worse than Dedicated to Chaos. His voice is just not great. It's a shell of what it was on this album. The studio musician's performance, I wouldn't even say it's professional. I would say it doesn't even sound professional, to be honest. The production, they even had to send out remixes only a month after because the production was so bad. This album, it was so rushed. It was the definition of rushed. It was a cash-in. Now, it combines everything on this list I've edited. I've told you how much I hate cash-ins like Boston's Life, Love and Hope and Jimi Hendrix, People, Hell and Angels. And I've told you how I like bad, generic albums that are trying to cater for a mainstream that doesn't care about this type of music with, you know, Bon Jovi and Temper. And here, he combines them all into one giant sack of shit. This is why Frequency Unknown is the worst album of 2013. This is why Frequency Unknown is possibly the worst album of the decade so far. I would say, honestly, it's worse than Metallica and Lou Reed's Lulu. That's how bad we are talking. I hope I never have to hear this again, and especially the cherry on top was re-recording Jet City Woman and Silent Lucidity. Just... no, Jeff. No. And I've heard he's going to be working on a new album in 2014 to release. I swear to God, Jeff, you do that, I will make you regret it. This has been TheAIbumMan. Thanks for watching. Comment, subscribe, as usual, long live rock and roll. And let's hope, you know, there's less crap releases in 2014. No, I'm sure they will.